Welcome to SIGHTLINE Live, the podcast where we explore how live experiences can fuel year-round marketing. I'm your host, Marie-Elaine Lemire. I'm excited to welcome Matt Morris, Head of Marketing at Lightspeed Commerce, who shapes the company's marketing strategy, including experiential initiatives. In this episode, we dive into how brands use events to engage audiences, whether through owned experiences like Lightspeed Edge or by participating in industry events. Matt, I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Welcome to the SIGHTLINE Live podcast. But before we dive into Lightspeed and Edge, I'd love to start with you. So what's the short version of your journey into marketing, and what experiences most shape how you think about brand and leadership today?
Yeah, good question. So I have a very unconventional way to marketing. So I never went to school for marketing. I don't have any formal background in marketing. Actually, fun fact, when your parents ask you when you're younger what you want to be when you you grow up, my answer was a cop. So I actually wanted to be a police officer. So I have a degree in law and society. I went to police college, and in my last year of university, I actually started a company with two of my childhood best friends. And that company ended up being a lot bigger than any of us had ever imagined. And that's really where I got introduced and started learning marketing, and it kind of took off from there.
So was there a specific moment where marketing really clicked for you?
The short answer is yes. I was more or less voluntold to do the marketing thing. When you're starting a business, there are things that just need to be done, and the two other co-founders both had things to do, and that kind of left marketing to myself. With marketing in particular, there's this concept of the T-shaped marketer. So the horizontal stem is kind of this more broad, generalist kind of overarching marketing, and then the stem or vertical is kind of this deep expertise in kind of one domain or one channel in particular. And the business that we had started really primarily relied on email marketing and marketing automation as it's better known today. And so I really had to go deep and understand that channel in particular. And that's really kind of where I started getting, really interested in creative and strategy and the data and the analytics and frequency and tying back your marketing activities to impact and revenue and things like that. So yeah, I think that was kind of when the light bulb went off for me that, oh, I think there's actually a career here.
And then right after starting that business, that you jumped into Lightspeed right after that?
Oh, no. So we did that for about 5 years or so, and then moved on to a smaller agency in Toronto that was really specializing in kind of that email marketing automation and CRM. And it just so happened, this was around 2015, that this little company at the time called Shopify was opening up their offices in Toronto. And it was really fortunate to join them and take everything I had learned kind of in that email marketing and marketing automation space and apply it to Shopify, who was really kind of opening this Toronto office to be their center of excellence for marketing. And so I joined that team in 2015. I was there just until COVID hit in 2019, decided I wanted to move on to another opportunity, joined another local startup in Toronto in the ed tech space. Kind of reason being really going back to that T-shaped marketer was in order to get that horizontal experience, I knew I was going to have to make the jump to kind of round out my T, so to speak. I was there for 6 years, and then I was recruited to Lightspeed. I'd heard a lot about them, obviously from my days at Shopify, and them just being a wildly successful Canadian success story.
So talking more about Lightspeed and from what you know before you joined the team, so how has Lightspeed's marketing strategy evolved over the past few years as the company scaled globally and expanded its product offering?
Good question. So Lightspeed, kind of historical context, has been this global point of sale or commerce solution spanning a number of different industries. And we were, quite honestly, I think up until about 12 to 18 months ago, kind of everything to everyone. And more recently, we focused into more of a regional structure, really kind of trying to play to our product market fit strengths in those regions. And so Lightspeed in North America, our primary focus is in the retail space. So think point of sale, retail commerce. in EMEA, our primary focus is in the hospitality industry. And then we have an international team that kind of covers everything. And so, this refocused regional approach has really allowed for those regional teams to really go deep in the areas that, really work well for our business and ultimately at the end of the day, like serve our customers as well.
Amazing. And so, if we talk more about events, where do events and experiential marketing sits within the broader Lightspeed marketing mix today?
Yeah, so events and experiential sit within our brand marketing team. And so really kind of the point of them sitting with this team is, very, very intentional because we really view events as, a really high leverage program and channel for us. And really it is talking about really creating that demand at the top of the funnel. But also at the same time, what we've noticed is that events are also a really great opportunity to not only create, but capture the demand as well. And so there's no real better team for events to sit with than with kind of the brand marketing team, which really kind of focus on the creative, the aspirational and inspirational messaging and programming that we want to get out to our audiences and quite honestly the broader market and world. And yeah, that's why we've been very intentional with putting that team there.
And what would you say, like events, in person events, brings you that digital marketing is not able to provide?
In 2026, it's hard to not open, a social feed or platform and be bombarded with things like AI apocalypse and AI is taking over and, all of this sort of stuff. And, I think events have a very complementary place as it relates to digital, but also a very intentional place as well. I think it's pretty interesting to see that, you have digital native, digital heavy campaigns that serve, a purpose. And then you have this, in-person experiential channel that really kind of balances out your overall marketing mix. It just allows us to meet people face to face. It allows us to really create kind of a human connection. Lightspeed's bread and butter, whether it be in EMEA, internationally, or within North America, is primarily, in-person physical businesses. And I think there's some, a really interesting connection between us being intentional of investing in this in-person experiential event channel and how that tracks and correlates to, just what Lightspeed does best as a business.
That makes sense. So, would you say your perspective on experiential marketing changed over time, and especially as expectations from customers and partners evolve?
I think I've always understood the importance of, and the teams I've worked with have always understood the importance of human connection. I do think now, because of the prevalence of AI and technology and inundation with all things digital, events are really kind of having their moment, right? And I'm seeing a lot more brands and businesses invest in things like experiential. And the beauty with events too is that they're very malleable. They range from things like trade shows and sponsorships to, just grabbing a bunch of your highest value or most interested customers and going to a bar and having a drink or taking them out for dinner, right? Like the spectrum for events and experiential is very, very wide spanning.
Yeah, VIP events, breakfast, trade shows, conferences, so many different formats. And one thing that is super interesting about Lightspeed is that you do both. So you are sponsoring events, you're going to trade shows, but you're also hosting your own Edge that just took place last January. How do you think about the strategic difference between the two?
I think the TLDR is that with one sponsorships, you usually have to operate within a set of constraints and, hosted events or, first party events, you have a lot more freedom to really craft and mold what that experience is going to look like. And so we like to do both. I think when you show up for sponsorships or sponsored events, the challenges are, you're competing for attention with other companies. You're dependent on who actually shows up in the foot traffic and are they the right people? Sometimes there's, physical limitations with how big your booth presence can be. How much money are you willing to spend there? Do the economics an ROI makes sense for that sponsorship. Tangentially versus the first party or hosted events, like they're kind of the complete opposite of that. It's like we can control who comes to those, we can control the look and feel, we can control how we want the guests to feel and what we want them to leave with and the type of content that they're going to be subjected to. And there is a lot more freedom. And what we found really works is, being able to do a first party or hosted event in and around the same time that we're going to be doing a sponsorship. So if you take NRF, for example, you kind of get the best of both worlds. Everyone is in town. You get to take advantage of the folks that are, traveling in and really kind of just have them come to your event at the same time they would be attending another trade show as well.
And for our audience listening to this podcast right now, I want to highlight that we just published an article about Edge. You've been sharing so great insights on how you've been working around your own event. So if anyone is interested, you can go read Matt's insights on sightlinelive.com. But beyond the leads or pipeline, what kind of value do owned events unlock that sponsorship doesn't?
At the end of the day, like I'm still a quantitative marketer. I still definitely want myself and hold myself and my team accountable to metrics and results. So while, maybe a trade show is a little bit more linear in measurement, right? So you're tracking things like booth traffic and badge scans and on-site demos and how those are really kind of converting over time. We're definitely still taking that same performance lens to, our hosted events, but we're also looking at things like, how many customers attended that event and what does their lifetime value look like, after they attended that event, or, are they adopting specific features and functionality that they got early access to through our beta program, right? And what does that ultimately end up doing to their lifetime value? And so I wouldn't say that we're necessarily like off the hook for measurement. I think we're just looking at it in a little bit of a different way where sponsorships tend to be a little bit more, like I was saying, like linear or binary in nature versus our hosted events. It tends to be a little bit more of a diverse mix of, people who might be there, but ultimately still trying to measure the value.
So more specifically about Edge, how did the idea come to life and what problem were you trying to solve with an event that is yours when you started thinking about it?
Good question. So Edge, I got to give a shout out to my counterpart in EMEA, Christina, but our European team, actually does these innovation events quite frequently in our European market. And it has definitely been something since I got to Lightspeed that we wanted to test out in North America. And so, yeah, I think we just, we're looking at the roadmap and saying where and when is the best place for us to do an Edge innovation event. NRF, obviously, New York being the epicenter of retail and, having that kind of groundswell and, everyone there kind of just made sense to do it. And we just wanted to take advantage too of the fact that, from a news cycle standpoint, there's a lot of talk about retail. There's a lot of talk about the future of retail. And we just wanted to make sure that, we had our unique voice and position heard, things like coordinating a press release around, new products that are launching and coming to market, coordinating that with the timing of NRF and Edge, and really using Edge as that platform to showcase a lot of our product and feature innovations.
So if you think about the preparation and the execution of Edge, is there like anything you would have made differently?
I mean, the team did such an amazing job executing. And you have to remember that, our team doesn't just work on events. So we have a fantastic in-house creative content and event and experiential team. And Edge is just one of, many things that they're doing. And so without them, one, we wouldn't have been able to pull it off. But two, I think, looking back retrospectively, time is definitely the thing that I think at one point have, a lot of. And then as that date gets closer and closer, you quickly realize you don't have as much time as you thought you did. And so, we're already starting to think about and start planning our Edge for next year, it will be the earliest that we've ever done this. And so really kind of making sure that you're using every possible minute and hour that you have available to you to think about how you're going to pull this off.
We always say the earlier the better, and then we wait because we're like, we have enough time. So let's wait a couple of weeks. And then you're like, you never have enough time, right? But that's exciting. So, I mean, I was there at this last Edge event, and I cannot agree more. The execution was so well done. I was really impressed with all the details, the projection of your logo outside on the other building. I will remember that. And I thought your team really was smart with the branding of the overall space. With projections, it allowed you to, be more sustainable and branding even more pieces of the walls and use the space. It was really amazing. Congrats on this event and thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, no worries.
If we talk more about your personal point of view, so what mistakes do brands often make when sponsoring an event?
I think just going back to my point on measurement, I think what's worked really well for us when it comes to deciding what events to show up to and go to is really being intentional of what are the expectations or what are we hoping to achieve. And so, Lightspeed from a North American retail perspective has core verticals that we're particularly interested in. And so working backwards from saying, okay, hey, what would success look like if we wanted to make a big impact in the fashion apparel industry or the sport and outdoor industry would be to show up at shows that cater to audiences that belong to the fashion apparel and sport and outdoor industry so that we can get really targeted with, the right message to the right ICP or persona of person who's going to be there. We can tailor the look and feel of our booth so that it's a little bit more complementary to what vertical we're going after. We can then host an event of ourselves that caters to that sort of demographic. So I'll give you an example. Coterie is an event, that we've had quite a bit of success with. It's within the fashion apparel space. We'll tailor our event treatment to feel very premium and luxurious, and we'll have a cocktail hour, as an example. We will tailor all of the messaging around Lightspeed retail point of sale as well as Lightspeed wholesale, which gives our retailers brand access. And we'll just make sure that the brands that we're representing are relevant to the type of fashion apparel retailer that is going to be at the show. And so, I think it's just really trying to be intentional of what show you're going to, and then how can you make it the most personable or relevant to the people that are going to show up there.
100%. I agree with that. So, can we have any hints on where we can find Lightspeed next? Which event you're going to go to?
Well, I know it's not public yet, so I can't say exactly where we're going to be this year. But what I can say is we're definitely working a lot more closely with your team and Emerald in particular to make sure that we're at some of the shows that you've recommended. And the team over there has been fantastic in really understanding, going back to my point, who we're trying to get in front of, and ultimately at the end of the day, what success looks like. And your team's been really, really great. This isn't a plug. We didn't talk about this
Didn't
before.
pay you to say
This is
that.
not paid, but have been really good about coming back to us and saying, based on the information that you've given us, here are the shows that we recommend, you go to, and then we'll take that back, we'll work it through, and then we'll finalize.
And we are very excited to work with your team. So, I want to do a little quick lighting round. So, I'm going to ask you a few questions. I want the first answers that come to your mind. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
So, one brand event you've experienced that really impressed you, not Lightspeed.
So I got to give a shout out to another Canadian company, Wealthsimple. I believe their last event was called Wealthsimple Presents, and it was this really, really slick in person, but also virtual event that, again, was, from what I experienced, was just pulled off very, very seamlessly. And I think until you've actually gone through and pulled off, an asynchronous or synchronous event, more importantly, synchronous, you don't really understand all of the small intricacies it takes to pull that off. And they just did a really fantastic job.
One skill every modern marketer needs.
At the end of the day, you got to remember who you're going after, who you're targeting, the people that are going to receive the message at the end of the day. So really understand your audience.
Amazing. One experiential trend you think is overhyped?
Bad swag. Be intentional with the swag. Pay for the premium stuff. Give people what they would actually want and use. Don't do the branded, whatever.
Pencil.
Exactly. Like give them the good stuff. Ask yourself, would I actually use this? And then if the answer is no, don't buy it.
Okay, what's the best swag you received?
So best swag I've received, again, I'm gonna talk about Lightspeed. So Lightspeed has a golf vertical. We're one of the most prominent golf technology providers in the space. And so we host a lot of our own golf events. And so the same thing, we handed out these branded golf speakers that people could use in their carts when they're playing golf. So again, like, would I use that? Absolutely. We gave it to the people that came to our event.
Love it. And if you could host an Edge style event anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Edge, Hawaii, for sure. Especially now there's like 10 feet of snow outside.
I hope you'll invite me to that one too.
Yeah, you're invited. I mean, if you want to host the next Surf Expo or any surfing events that you have in Hawaii, we will definitely be open to sponsoring it.
I'll take note of that. So, most underrated marketing channel today?
Owned content, I think, is highly underrated. Like, I think this is a really fantastic example of that. Like, the more that you can produce authentic, owned content, and I think, the conversation about AI that we had is only allowing that to get, easier and scale quicker and faster and cheaper. That is going to be a commodity, quite a valuable commodity in the future. I think also when it comes to the owned and branded side of things, I think personally it's going to be hard to tell the difference between what is real and what is fake. And so the more kind of brand authority you can put behind your content and say, this is produced or this was from Lightspeed, as an example, I think is going to be really, really valuable.
Couldn't agree more. Matt, this has been such a great conversation. Thank you so much for sharing both your strategy and the thinking behind it. For everyone listening, we'll include links to Lightspeed and Edge in the notes. And thanks for turning into SIGHTLINE. We'll see you next time.